This topic of white space, which of course is a big part of what you do, White Space at Work is your company and you're dedicated to white space. I think it is probably one of the most underrated concepts in all of personal productivity. I don't care who you are, where you are, what you do. I'm really excited about this. So let's start with, what is white space? What does it look like?
So here's how we define it. We define white space as a strategic pause taken between activities. So any pause, even if it's a half a second, 3 seconds, up to half an hour, longer pauses, to recalibrate, to recuperate, to use basically thoughtfulness as a business tool. And it isn't really one of the things we tend to keep in our business toolkit, but that's our mission, is to move companies from companies of exertion, where people are just doing and doing and doing and doing, to companies of thoughtfulness, where there's an element of stepping back and objectivity about the work.
Yeah, now I want to clarify something. This is not meditation. You're not saying, I want people to make sure they don't just kind of throw this out with the, I don't have time to meditate during the day. How is it different?
So there's actually 3 categories of what we are not, and it might be good to walk you through all 3.
Absolutely.
Okay. Not meditation. Right. Meditation is a disciplinary experience, and in meditation your mind wanders, and your goal is to pull it back, and wanders and pull it back. Then there's mind wandering. This is getting a lot of press now. That's the non-volitional aspect, when the mind is slipping away, but it's against your will. You're working on a very important spreadsheet, and all of a sudden you are in a Groupon for a Caribbean food, and you have no idea how you got there, and you just like, boom. This is the mind wandering. Yeah. And then there's mindfulness, and mindfulness, of course, tons of press. But mindfulness is also disciplinary in that it's asking you to take a thing and put all your senses and energy. So I'm feeling the cup, I'm drinking the water, I'm feeling the sun, I'm paying attention to a conversation. That mindful element also has discipline, whereas white space has no rules or goals. If you are in a white space moment, it's boundaryless, it's freedom, it's where your mind can follow instinct and find an unthunk thought and improvise, and there is no structure.
Is there a practice? I mean, we're just going to dive right into this, because then we'll apply it to so many things.
Yes.
But is there a practice that you have found or that you would suggest as you begin to say, I'm going to start testing this? So we're 4 minutes, 5 minutes into this, and people go, okay, whoa. How do I start this where I can just let the brain go?
So before they start, I think you really do have to appreciate why, because why would you even be bothering to start unless you have a little why? So I'll just tell you that I think there's an incredibly underappreciated benefit to doing this for individuals, for business owners, for business people. The secret we're missing is that this is a very profound source of professional power. If you're a salesperson and you don't have 2 minutes in the day where you step back and really think about your customer, who are they? Who's not getting them the way you could? What's their empathic experience? If you're a creative leader and you're saying to your people, innovate, but they have no time to innovate, your company can never get where it wants to go. So I just want to talk for 1 second about the why, because it's so purely critical. So in terms of the how, the most important thing is to understand that white space is kind of like a glass of water, and it sits on your desk, and you just take little sips. So we're not suggesting that people jump in a giant pool of luxurious 2-hour white space, which feels completely unattainable and impossible, and you just want to forget about it. But you could take a 4-second break, and you could take a 10-second break, and you could take 3 minutes before an incredibly critical meeting to step back and think about what you're about to do. And you could take 1 full minute when you turn your keys off in the driveway before you walk into family, to switch hats from work self to home self. And it is the interstitial use. It's the lacing through the day with these small interstitial pauses. That's really where the access point is, where it's not intimidating and when it has a lot of benefit.
Okay, so are we just sitting quietly? Are we closing our eyes?
Good.
Are we in a quiet room? Are we just off the hallway from where we're walking in? I want to paint a picture for how it is best to do when you're saying, okay, whether it's 4 seconds to use your analogy, or if it's 4 minutes.
But you seem like a guy who likes rules or boundaries. Or
Do I like rules?
Do you like rules? I don't know.
No,
but you're setting it up.
At all.
Well, you like specificity in that. And one of the problems with that request is that if you don't have autonomy in somebody's white space practice, they will reject it. So there are people for whom they want to close their eyes. There are people for whom going for a run is white space. There are people who use a timer and they like to set the timer down and they have 3 minutes. And if there's a practice without a really powerful flavor of of autonomy, it's very off-putting to people.
Got
and
it.
so I can't prescribe for you, but I can say a couple things. So when you stop a blender, all the blender stuff keeps spinning for a little bit. So you stop your mind for a moment. It's not meditation. You're not attempting to return to any breath or mind or mantra. So a lot of times you're just going to be churning a to-do list for a little while. You're just going to be, I got to change the gutters, pick up I forgot the lettuce at the store, all that low-level blender stuff. But as your mind has a little bit more time to pass through that process, then there's a little bit more freedom. And because people tend to have fear in the freedom, we give them what's called white space boosts. A boost question might be, how's my life going really? It's a little piece of candy to play with in the intimidating openness of the white space. A boost question could be, how would my team describe me? It's not really so directional because you can veer off of it, but it's just a little something to start the conversation, because what people have trouble doing is giving themselves permission and freedom to trust the output of their mind and to trust that maybe you're going to think about first that you need pip and apples, and then you're going to think about that you have your suitcase broke, and then you're going to get to a great idea, and you have to trust that improvisation and free flow in order to get there.
One of the ways you define white space, these are from your company, a boundless freedom for your brain. And I asked that question because I wanted different personalities and different people to go, okay, this just needs to be my white space.
Yes.
And so whatever that looks like, whatever works, but it is that moment, or whatever it is, however many moments, where you can go, okay, I'm just going to let my brain just kind of be
and
present.
There's two main flavors that might be helpful to you too. So there's recuperative white space. So that is, I am rebooting my exhausted brain and body. That is the Olympian taking a recovery set between training. That's just, right? Then there is constructive, which means now I'm using white space as a business tool toward a result. I'm thinking about innovation, strategy, introspection, professional reflection. That constructive use is more purposeful. The recuperative use is incredibly important now because people work in maniacal, exhausting ways. And so there's that balance of sometimes your white space is just, and it's phenomenally important because otherwise you start running on fumes. So we work with a lot of sales teams and people who have a very arduous job where they have to keep going. And it was just with the sales group, so they're in my mind. The last third of their sales output in the day is never as good as the first 2/3, because without those interstitial pauses, even though they're pumped up and they got their Red Bull and they're those power personalities, the human brain and body and psyche can just go so far. And so those little recuperative sips make an enormous difference.